The air felt heavier than it should have, thick with the kind of silence that screams secrets. I stood in the backyard of my best friend's house, the fading light of a Pennsylvania autumn painting the world in shades of amber and regret. At 19, I thought I knew what heartbreak was until James looked at me and everything I believed about love and loyalty shattered. My name is Ethan Carter, and I'd spent the last 5 years practically living at the Harper house. Noah Harper was my best friend, the kind of guy who'd share his last soda and never ask why you looked like you'd been crying. His dad, James, was the opposite, quiet, intense, the kind of man whose presence filled a room without trying. At 45, he had this rugged charm sultan pepper hair, hands calloused from years of carpentry, and eyes that seemed to see right through you. I'd always noticed him, but noticing turned into something else the summer I turned 18, when I caught him watching me from across the garage, his gaze lingering just a second too long. That evening, Noah was at a college orientation 2 towns over, leaving the house eerily quiet. I'd come by to grab a book I'd lent him, but James had asked me to stay, said he needed help with something in the backyard. I didn't think twice. James was like a second father to me. Or so I thought. "Ethan," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, as we stood by the old oak tree. "There's something I need to tell you." His hands were shoved deep in his pockets, like he was trying to keep them from betraying whatever he was holding back. I felt my pulse quicken, not because of what he said, but how he said it, like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. I shifted my weight, the grass crunching under my sneakers. "What's up, Mr. Harper?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracked, betraying me. He flinched at the formality, like it was a wall between us. "Call me James," he corrected, stepping closer. The space between us shrank, and I could smell the faint cedar of his cologne mixed with the crisp autumn air. I've been meaning to say this for a while, but I didn't know how. Not with Noah around. My stomach twisted. I wasn't stupid. I'd felt the tension between us for months. The way his hand brushed mine when he passed me a wrench. The way he'd smile when I made a dumb joke, like it was our little secret. But I'd buried it, told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining things. He was my best friend's dad, for God's sake. He was straight, married once, divorced, and definitely not supposed to look at me the way he was now. "James," I started, but he cut me off, his voice urgent. "I'm not proud of this, Ethan. I've tried to ignore it, to be the man I'm supposed to be. But every time you're here, it's like I can't breathe right." He paused, his jaw tightening. "I'm in love with you." The world stopped. My heart slammed against my ribs, and for a moment, I forgot how to speak. James Harper, the man who'd taught me how to change a tire, who'd cheered at my high school graduation, was standing in front of me, confessing something that could ruin everything. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to run, because I'd been in love with him too, for longer than I'd ever admit, and hearing it out loud felt like a punch to the chest. "James, you can't just," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Noah's my best friend. You're his dad. This isn't supposed to happen." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I know it's wrong. But I've spent years pretending, hiding who I am. I can't do it anymore. Not with you." He reached out, his hand hovering near my arm, like he was afraid to touch me. "I needed you to know, even if it changes everything." I stared at him, my mind racing. This wasn't just about use, it was about Noah, about the family I'd found in their home, about the life I'd built here. If I said yes to this, if I let myself feel what I'd been shoving down for so long, it could destroy everything. But standing there, with James's eyes locked on mine, I felt something shift inside me, a spark of courage, or maybe recklessness. James, I said, my voice steadier now. What happens if Noah finds out? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, his hand finally grazing my arm, sending a shiver through me. I don't know, he admitted. But I'd rather face that than spend another day pretending I don't feel this. I wanted to kiss him. God, I wanted to. But the weight of what he'd said, of what it meant, held me back. I took a step back, my breath shaky. I need time, I said. It's too much. He nodded, his expression a mix of relief and pain. Take all the time you need, Ethan. I'll be here. As I walked away, the backyard fading into the dusk, I felt the world tilting under my feet. I'd spent years dreaming of a moment like this, but now that it was here, it felt like a storm waiting to tear my life apart. I couldn't sleep that night. James's words echoed in my head, each syllable a hammer against the walls I'd built around my heart. By morning, I was a mess, pacing my tiny apartment, torn between wanting to run back to him and wanting to forget it ever happened. The next day, I avoided the Harper house. Noah texted me about some new video game, oblivious to the bomb his dad had dropped. I replied with a half-hearted emoji, my fingers trembling. How was I supposed to face him now, knowing what I knew? Knowing that every time I saw James, I'd be fighting the urge to cross a line we could never uncross. I threw myself into distractions classes at the community college, shifts at the diner where I bussed tables, anything to keep my mind off James. But he was everywhere, in the scent of sawdust that clung to my jacket from his workshop, in the way the sunset reminded me of that backyard confession. I was drowning in him, and I hadn't even said yes. A week later, I couldn't avoid Noah anymore. He showed up at my place, his usual grin faltering when he saw my face. Dude, you look like crap, he said, tossing his backpack onto my couch. What's going on? Nothing, I lied, my voice too tight. Noah raised an eyebrow, not buying it, but he didn't push. That was the thing about Noah, he knew when to let things lie, even when it killed him. We played video games for a while, the familiar chaos of pixelated explosions filling the silence. But my mind was elsewhere, replaying James's confession, the way his hand had felt on my arm. You coming to the barbecue tomorrow? Noah asked, his eyes on the screen. Dad's grilling. Says he hasn't seen you in a while. My stomach dropped. I don't know, I said, fumbling for an excuse. Got a lot of homework. Noah snorted. Since when do you care about homework? Come on, man. It's just burgers. Dad's been weird lately too. Maybe you can cheer him up. I froze. Weird how? He shrugged, his focus still on the game. I don't know. Quiet. Staring off into space. Mom used to say he got like that when he was stressed, but he won't talk about it. Guilt twisted in my gut. Was James as torn up as I was? Or worse, was he regretting what he'd said? I wanted to ask Noah more, to dig into what he'd noticed, but that felt like betraying James's trust. And mine. The barbecue was unavoidable. Noah dragged me along, and the moment I stepped into the Harper backyard, I felt James's presence like a magnet. He was at the grill, flipping burgers, his flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows. When he saw me, his eyes softened, but there was a flicker of something else, fear. Maybe. Or hope. Hey, Ethan, he said, his voice steady but loaded. Noah was already halfway across the yard, joking with some neighbors, leaving us alone by the grill. Hey, I managed, my throat dry. The air between us crackled, every glance a risk. I wanted to ask him if he meant it, if he was sure, but the word stuck. "You've been avoiding me," he said quietly, poking at the coals. I needed to think. I admitted. It's complicated." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I know. I shouldn't have put you in this position. But I don't regret it. Ethan. I can't." His honesty hit me like a wave. I glanced around, making sure Noah was still distracted, then lowered my voice. "What do we do now? Pretend it never happened? Is that what you want?" He asked, his eyes searching mine. I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted him, but I wanted Noah's friendship too. I wanted a world where this didn't feel like a betrayal. Before I could answer, Noah called out, waving me over. I shot James a look, a silent promise that we weren't done, and walked away, my heart pounding. That night, I texted James for the first time. Just 3 words, "We need to talk." His reply came instantly, "Tomorrow." My place. Noah's out. The Harper house felt different without Noah's laughter echoing through it. I stood in the living room, my hands stuffed in my pockets, as James closed the door behind me. The silence was deafening, heavy with everything we hadn't said. "Coffee," he offered, his voice softer than usual. I nodded, following him to the kitchen. The familiar clink of mugs felt strangely intimate, like we were playing at normalcy when nothing about this was normal. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd eaten countless meals with Noah and his dad. Now, it felt like a battleground. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted, staring at the steam rising from my coffee. "I've never felt like this before." James leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "Neither have I," he said. "Not like this. I was married for 15 years. Ethan. I thought I knew what love was. But this," he gestured between us, his voice catching. "This is different. It's terrifying." I laughed, a shaky sound. "Yeah, tell me about it. I keep thinking about Noah, about how he'd react if he knew. He's my brother, James. Losing him would kill me." James's face tightened, and I saw the guilt in his eyes. "I know. He's my son. I'd rather die than hurt him. But I can't keep pretending I'm someone I'm not. Not anymore." The weight of his words settled over me. James had spent years hiding who he was, burying his truth under the expectations of a small-town life. I'd only just started figuring out my own identity, coming out to Noah last year. But James had decades of silence behind him. The courage it took to say those words to Mike made my chest ache. "So what do we do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We can't just start something. Can we?" He reached across the table, his hand brushing mine. The touch was electric, grounding me and unraveling me all at once. "I don't know," he said, "but I want to try. If you do." I wanted to say yes, to lean into him and let the world fall away. But the image of Noah's face, the betrayal he'd feel, stopped me. "We have to be careful," I said finally. "If we do this, no one can know." "Not yet." James nodded, his thumb grazing my knuckles. "Agreed. For now, it's just us." That was the moment we crossed the line. It wasn't a kiss, not yet just a promise, sealed in the quiet of that kitchen. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, unraveling the years of unspoken feelings. He told me about his marriage, how he'd known he was attracted to men but pushed it down, convinced it was a phase. I told him about my first crush, a boy in 10th grade who never knew, and how I'd spent years feeling like I didn't belong. By the time I left, the sun was setting, and I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight I hadn't noticed until it was gone. But as I walked home, A new fear settled in. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about Noah, about the life we were risking, about the secret we were now carrying together. For the next few weeks, James and I lived in stolen moments. A brush of hands in the garage, a lingering glance at the dinner table, a late-night text that made my heart race. It was exhilarating and agonizing, like holding your breath underwater, beautiful until you realize you're drowning. Noah didn't suspect a thing, or so I thought. We still hung out, played basketball, talked about college and girls and the future. But every time he mentioned his dad, I felt a pang of guilt. I was lying to my best friend, and the weight of it was starting to crack me. One night, James invited me over when Noah was at a party. The house was dark, lit only by the glow of a single lamp in the living room. James was waiting for me, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. "I missed you," he said, pulling me into a hug. It was the first time we'd touched like that, and it felt like coming home. I buried my face in his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of cedar and sawdust. "I missed you too," I whispered, my voice muffled against his shirt. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his hand cupping my face. And then, before I could overthink it, he kissed me. It wasn't like the movies, all fireworks and music. It was raw, desperate, full of everything we'd been holding back. His lips were warm, his hands steady, and for a moment, I forgot about Noah, about the world outside. It was just us, and it was enough. But reality crashed back too soon. The sound of a car door slamming outside made us pull apart, our breaths ragged. "Noah," James whispered, his eyes wide with panic. I froze, my heart pounding as the front door creaked open. "Dad." "Ethan." Noah's voice called out, slurred from a few too many beers. I scrambled to the couch, grabbing a random book to pretend I'd been reading. James straightened his shirt, his face a mask of calm I didn't feel. "Hey, man," I said, forcing a smile as Noah stumbled into the room. "You're home early." "Yeah, party sucked," he mumbled, collapsing onto the couch next to me. He didn't seem to notice anything, but my pulse was still racing. James excused himself to the kitchen, and I sat there, pretending to care about Noah's drunken rant, while my mind replayed that kiss over and over. We were playing with fire, and I knew it. But every time I thought about stopping, about walking away, I remembered the way James looked at me, like I was the only thing that mattered. And I couldn't let that go. The secret grew heavier with every passing day. James and I stole moments when we could, late nights in his workshop, quiet walks in the woods behind his house, but each one came with a cost. I started noticing things. The way Noah's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The way he'd ask if I was okay one too many times. He was starting to sense something, even if he didn't know what. One afternoon, I was helping James in his workshop, sanding a table he was building. The air was thick with sawdust and tension. "We can't keep doing this," I said, setting down the sandpaper. "Not like this. It's killing me, lying to him." James stopped working, his hand still on the wood. "I know," he said, his voice low. "But what's the alternative?" "Tell him. Lose him." I didn't have an answer. The thought of Noah hating me, hating his dad, was unbearable. But so was the thought of giving James up. "Maybe we should take a break," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Just until we figure this out." James's face fell, but he nodded. "If that's what you need," he said, his voice barely audible. "But I'm not going anywhere, Ethan." I meant what I said. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept replaying our conversation, the look in his eyes, the way his voice broke. I was trying to protect Noah, but I was tearing myself apart in the process. The next day, Noah cornered me at the diner during my break. "Okay, spill it," he said, his arms crossed. "You've been weird for weeks. What's going on?" I froze, my mind racing for a lie. "Just school stress," I said, avoiding his eyes. "And work. You know how it is." He didn't buy it. "Bullshit," he said, his voice sharp. "You're my best friend, Ethan. If something's wrong, you tell me." I wanted to. God, I wanted to tell him everything. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I forced a laugh, clapping him on the shoulder. "I'm fine, man. Promise." He didn't push, but the look in his eyes told me he wasn't convinced. As he left, I felt the weight of my lies settle deeper, like a stone in my chest. Things unraveled faster than I could have imagined. It started with a text from Noah, "Meet me at the park." Now, no emojis, no jokes, just a demand. My stomach churned as I grabbed my jacket and headed out. He was waiting by the old swing set, his hands shoved in his pockets, his face unreadable. "You gonna tell me what's going on?" he asked, his voice cold. "Or do I have to guess?" I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb," he snapped. "I saw you and my dad last night. In the workshop. You thought I was asleep, but I wasn't." My heart stopped. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Noah's eyes were blazing, a mix of anger and hurt I'd never seen before. "Noah," I started, but he cut me off. "Are you screwing my dad, Ethan?" His voice was loud, raw, echoing through the empty park. Because that's what it looked like. I felt like I'd been punched. "It's not like that," I said, my voice shaking. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" He laughed, a bitter sound. "You're my best friend. He's my dad. And you're sneaking around behind my back. How is that complicated?" I wanted to explain, to make him understand. But how could I? How do you tell your best friend you're in love with his dad? That it's not just some fling. That it's real. That it's breaking you apart. "Noah, I'm sorry," I said, my voice cracking. "I never meant to hurt you." Neither did he. He stared at me, his jaw tight, his eyes wet. "You're both liars," he said finally. "I trusted you, Ethan. I trusted him. And you've been lying to my face." He turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, the swings creaking in the wind. I wanted to chase after him, to beg him to listen, but I knew it was no use. I'd lost him. I didn't see James for days after that. I couldn't face him, not after Noah's words, not after the look in his eyes. I stayed in my apartment, ignoring texts, skipping classes, letting the guilt and grief swallow me whole. Finally, James showed up at my door. He looked exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed, his usual strength replaced by something fragile. "No one knows," he said, his voice hollow. "He confronted me last night. It didn't go well." I nodded, my throat tight. "He saw us in the workshop. He hates me." James stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "He doesn't hate you," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "He's angry. Hurt. But he'll come around." "Will he?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Because I don't see how. I betrayed him, James. We both did." He reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said. I can't do this if it means losing him." James's face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw him break. "I love you, Ethan," he said, his voice raw. "But I love my son too. If this is too much, if you need to walk away, I'll understand." I wanted to scream, to tell him I didn't want to walk away, that I loved him too. But the cost was too high. "I think we need to stop," I said, the words tearing at me. "For Noah. For you." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "If that's what you want," he said, echoing his words from before. But this time, they felt final. He left, and I sank to the floor, sobbing. I'd lost Noah, and now I'd lost James too. The love I'd wanted so badly had cost me everything. Months passed, each one heavier than the last. Noah didn't speak to me, didn't answer my texts, didn't even look at me when we passed on campus. James kept his distance, respecting my choice, but I saw him sometimes at the hardware store, at the diner, his eyes always finding mine, full of a longing that mirrored my own. I threw myself into my studies, my job, anything to fill the void. But the truth was, I was hollow. I'd made the right choice, hadn't I? I'd chosen Noah, chosen loyalty over love. But it didn't feel right. It felt like I'd ripped out a piece of myself and left it bleeding. One spring day, I found a letter in my mailbox, handwritten, no return address. My heart raced as I recognized James's handwriting. Inside was a single page, his words careful and deliberate. "Ethan, I've spent my life hiding, and I thought I could keep doing it. But you showed me what it means to be alive, to feel something real. I'm sorry for the pain we caused, for the choice you had to make. I'm trying to fix things with Noah, to be honest with him. If you ever change your mind, I'm still here. James." I read it over and over, my hands trembling. That night, I went to the Harper house, my heart in my throat. Noah answered the door, his expression guarded but softer than before. "I got a letter," I said, holding it up. "From your dad." He nodded, stepping aside to let me in. "He told me everything," he said. "About him, about you. It's a lot. But I'm trying to understand." We talked for hours, the three of us, me, Noah, and James. It wasn't easy. There were tears, apologies, moments of silence that felt like they'd never end. But there was also forgiveness, tentative and fragile, but real. Noah didn't hate me. He didn't hate his dad. He was hurt, but he was trying to heal, to accept us for who we were. And in that moment, I realized something. Love doesn't always mean sacrifice. Sometimes, it means fighting for what matters, even when it's messy, even when it hurts. James and I didn't pick up where we left off. Not right away. But we started over, slowly, with Noah's cautious blessing. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. The backyard looked different now, bathed in the soft light of spring. James took my hand, his grip steady, and I knew we'd find a way forward together.